Hi, meditation nerds. Welcome to today's talk. I'm giving a little bit of a lag at the start and at the end. Okay, so there it goes, a reset. All right, welcome, meditation nerds. If this is a repeat, my apologies. My system shows live and then it resets, so I never know when it's actually going live. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a lag at the start and then a little bit of a lag at the end to make sure um, that everything gets in there and it doesn't necessarily get cut off. And then I'm trying to figure out a way. I wish I had like little fireworks or something that I can set off at the end to let me know that the video was caught up with where I am. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about why meditators sought their demons and why you should actually be sitting with them. Now, I do want to add a disclaimer here. We're going to be talking about some issues that people may find too intense, may find triggering. So maybe skip this one. Come back to it when you feel like it's a topic that you are open to listening to. Um, this is not a topic about literal demons. I'm not getting into that. This is more of a secular talk. There's more to the conversation than literal demons. Um, so, that being said, I came into this thinking that meditation was all about seeing pretty lights. Anybody else? Anybody else told that it's just all about Om and just lots of prosperity and peace and ah? All right, well, I'm here to go ahead and deconstruct that for you. So it turns out that for millennia, meditators have actually been visited by their inner demons, however that looked for them, however that showed up for them. So let's talk a little bit about why nightmare fuel, quote unquote, nightmare fuel was a standard part of the curriculum. And in my experience, it was actually very, very helpful. I'll talk about that a little bit later. First, I want to start with this is across traditions, from Desert Fathers to Tibetan Buddhists. Intensive meditation was consistently reported to bring up terrifying visions, which, hands up if you've ever had that. Give me a fist in the comments, give me a heart, give me a smile, cyclone, thought bubble. Says, yeah, same here. There's some horrific stuff that comes up, right? Terrifying things that come up. Now, within those traditions, these were actually understood not as external monsters. It wasn't something outside of you, but actual manifestations of our own inner defilements, fears, attachments, uh, anxieties, potential outcomes. So the practice here was to sit with them, not run, right? This was built into part of what is arising. So if you think about it within like the app context, okay, so when I first started meditation, it was with an app. And I probably shared this story already. So if this is a repeat, you probably already know this. There was a whole lot of anger and rage that just, it felt like it exploded, right? I just felt angry and enraged all the time. That's the state that I was walking around in. I just was wholly unaware of it. So meditation simply got me to be present with all of that anger and that rage that I'm just stumbling around with, completely ignorant of the fact that this is actually how I'm walking around, right? And while I may have been completely oblivious to that, the people around me were not, right? So this is just a deeper extension of that. You're going deeper into, okay, so here are some of the roots of what's terrifying you, what's bringing you anxiety, what's bringing you anger. These are the aspects of yourself, your choices, your words, perhaps, that are extending out. These are the aspects of you that are afraid, that are terrifying, that are desperately trying to get your attention and bring you into this conversation about what is going on internally. Um, and that's part of why I chose the thumbnail that I did. So, part of what I find exhausting, and let me know if you disagree with me on any of these points. One of the things I find really exhausting about how meditation is presented is when we talk about the quote unquote shadow side or the monsters, the demons, the inner workings that are unpleasant or challenging or stifling. It's always done from like this black and white framework. And when I actually had these experiences, there was nothing but color. None of this was black and white. None of this was cut and dry. It wasn't this linear thing. So I wanted to have a thumbnail. I wanted to kick this conversation off with some color, with some lightness, right? And I do see, well, my experience was more of a dance with the my own inner demons that were desperately trying to connect with me and have a conversation about what was going on, right? Um, so I before I share that, I want to talk about some of the modern iterations of how we're currently working through this, or we're using sitting with or seeking out our demons in order to have true, deep, meaningful healing. So currently the way we do this is largely in therapy. Yes, there are some meditation practices and teachers um, that do encourage you to have that conversation, but it's not as widely addressed, at least from what I've seen and when I first started. So the therapy specifically, or especially using this, is IFS, internal family systems, and trauma work. So if you do any kind of trauma work, you're probably familiar with this aspect. So the modern process of sitting with painful memories, difficult emotions, and then, of course, the exiled part of ourselves is the clinical equivalent, right? The trauma work that we're doing. The language is different in the clinical setting. It's framed as processing trauma versus facing demons, right? Because one framing gives it a little bit more of a sterile approach. It's less evocative. It's less triggering, right? But the transformative principle of integration through non-avoidance is the same. That's the through line here, is connecting to these traumas, these demons, these manifestations that are trying to speak to us in a way that will listen, that will notice, that will hear, and face and sit with, right? So my particular story regarding this, I hadn't really ever heard this in meditation. I've heard about this within therapy. So this was familiar to me. But the way that it happened for me was when I first started doing Sudarshan Chakra Kriya, which is specifically for clearing out the subconscious. Well, I had this really nasty lady that would just like pop out of my periphery. And it freaked me out. It scared me. I didn't want to deal with it, right? Yeah, how apropos of trauma. Anyway, so one time I'm sitting on my mat and I'm meditating, and like I could feel that she was like moving closer. She was getting more colorful, and she was coming closer. I was more willing to have this conversation. And so one day I'm sitting there meditating. It was in the evening, and she just plopped down in front of me. And by plop down, I mean that literally. She was nasty. There was goo, there was a stink, she was covered in dirt. It was gross. This is my experience. Okay, I'm not saying this is anyone else's. I'm not saying, feel free to let me know what your experience was if you've had this, how yours showed up. I need a more dynamic approach personally, and apparently as I'm learning. So my issues have to shoot out some color. They have to be much bolder in order for me to stop and take notice. For good or bad, that's how I need to be approached. So this time in particular, while it was scary to sit there, my initial reaction was just like a firm grounding as the terror and the panic and all of those emotions kind of started swirling up. But this time I decided, you know what, let's have this conversation. Let's actually talk about what's going on here. Like, why are you hanging out on the sides? Why are you in my periphery? Let's just have this conversation. And I think it's because I was already within a meditation that I was able to actually sit with all of the panic and terror and anxiety that came up from that. Um, and it brought up a lot of different conversations. And this is what I mean when I say it's not linear. All of the sludge, all of the goo, the stink, all of that. And yes, I could actually smell a stink. So that's my experience with this particular form of meditation. Um, it was different layers of myself. Now, the easiest ones, the ones that I had already let go of that just needed like a confirmation of release, I guess is the best way to frame it, was just acknowledging these different layers. And as all of it started to fall off, as all of it started to, fade away, I saw myself sitting there. So it wasn't this big, like, dramatic thing necessarily, but it was a profound shift that the reality is that I was just running from myself. And yeah, it's a cliche to say that. I'm not super thrilled to be saying that. That is also the reality for me with my experience of this type of meditation. And it really did help me feel stronger and be able to have some self-compassion, especially when I make mistakes. I do not forgive myself when I make mistakes, which is painful. So, it helped me really look at those different aspects. And I wanted to bring this up because I don't I don't really want to be a part of the conversation where meditation is only talked about as being a certain way or a certain purpose or a certain thing, or it's not. It Meditation is just like all of us. We're not boxes. We're not a label. We're living, we're organic. It's like science. It's organic. It unfolds. It's many things. It's got different layers that do incredible things when you're ready to sit with them. So I wanted to bring these like more obscure topics and the different ways that meditation has been applied, and to call out the fact that these terrors that come up, the fear that comes up, the attachments that come up, those are part of what's been buried, right? And the whole point of meditation is to connect to that so that we can unpack it. Is this something that needs to be built upon? Is it something that needs to be let go of? Do we need to shave some of it off? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's meant to be an organic process because you are organic. I am organic. And I feel like having these conversations is just as vital as the meditation itself. And there was something else I was going to say there, but maybe I don't need to add anything else. But I really resonated with this one. This happened a few years ago, and I haven't seen her since. So I guess the work I did was was what was needed. I do have other things coming up now, but nothing like that. And I'm grateful that I had the experience. I'm grateful that I sat with myself and started to uncover all of these different layers that were just weighing me down. They stunk, they were slimy and sludgy and gross, and they needed to be released. So, um, that too is part of the practice. That all being said, this is not in any way saying that this is separate from therapy or in placement of therapy. This is meant to be a part of therapy if that's something that you do. Um, I do think these conversations are important though. So I wanted to shout out that this is another aspect, and just to reaffirm to anyone who is concerned or has doubt about their own practice. Um, It's not linear. You can take that as positive, negative, or neutral. At some point, it will be all three. So, you're not doing anything wrong. Your practice will change. It will grow as you do, and it should. It shouldn't be stagnant because you aren't. And if you are stagnant, then there's a problem, and you need to address that. You should step into what is stagnant, what is happening that you feel stagnant. What can you let go of? What can you work on? And what needs to be built up, right? So, just wanted to reiterate that. And also that you are not alone. All of us are that are meditating, however that meditative practice shows up. If you're using mantras, if your visualization, if you're, it's a prayer, it's your therapy sessions, right? Maybe you find meditation in mathematics. However, meditation shows up for you, it is a process. I lost my train of thought. Sorry. I started thinking about math. I have a contentious relationship with math. Anyway, so that's it for this conversation about facing our inner demons. I hope you found this helpful. I wanted to add something additional, but I think that's it for today. I think I'm going to try a hand on my head to see if we've reached the end. Nope. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. I hope you found this helpful and see you next time.